Hey guys, what's up? This is Owen Shields for runneronce.com, here with Hackpod for part 6 of the $11 Zoom that we're going through. Hi Hackpod.
Hello.
Okay. So we finished up with ending on the hand before this in the last video. We'll just crack on straight into this one and see what happens. It wasn't very exciting. Okay, pocket 2's here. I can't see doing anything else but calling. 3-betting makes no sense. Just going to call and hope for a flop like that. No point leading out, doing anything crazy like that. Just going to be checking. Do we want to check raise? So we do have some bluffs that we could be check raising with here. So we could have, the 5-3 suited, the 5-6 suited, those kind of hands that we do want to check raise with. We could get called. However, in general, I think this is a board that isn't going to be check raised too often because it's so dry. So I think just check calling and trying to kind of milk them for more is good. And the reason why I like check calling is we really have nothing to protect against. So yes, they're going to have some like pocket jacks that they can hit a jack with, but that's really not what the kind of hands that I'm aiming for. The kind of hands that I'm hoping for them to have are like, ace queen, and they bink a queen on the turn. And if we check raise, they fold those kind of hands. So I think slow playing is the best play here. I'm glad to see you make that. I think leading out on this turn actually makes some sense. So this is the kind of turn where big blind does want to be doing a lot of leading and a lot of small leading, because you have way more like 4-3 random, just like 4-3, 5-6 offsuit type hands in your range, because you're calling and closing the action pre-flop. That with your range in general, it makes sense to be leading a lot on these low cards. And the 2s here, I think, work well within that range. It also doesn't give him the option to check back with a ton of hands that he might call with, like, ace 9 offsuit, that he probably doesn't barrel on this card, but probably will call because he's got a gut shot plus 1 over plus a potential over to like a 4x. So I think we could make a strong case for leading out here for like 6-7 big blinds, and that would work very well. Goes check check, and then you get the 4. At this stage, you kind of have to think, okay, well, he checked back turn. How much value can I get out of him? I think the answer is not much. I think we want to be going probably like half pot size here. Try and milk him, if he has like 8s, 9s, even like an ace king that he just wants to get married to. I think once we start betting bigger, we're just going to generate so many folds. His check back on the turn just means that he has nothing so often, because he would carry on betting with a 10. He would carry on betting with over pairs, I would imagine. So yeah, his range is just really weak in this spot, and we just have to try and get as much value as we can. I think the check doesn't make any sense. So the check is just hoping that he'll like blindly bluff off with something, which I don't think he does. And when he checks turn, like I said, he just removes all those weak hands from his range. We're not getting a call by that. And yes, you give him the option to bluff, but when he checks turn and the board runs out so good for you, and even a pretty bad player will understand that this board is good for the big blind. So yeah, I think we just want to try and get value on the river. Slow playing in general these days is not the best way to go. I definitely don't love slow playing too much. Okay, so blind versus blind, he min raises. We call with the king 6, which is fine, and get a decent flop for us, and he checks. I'm okay with the sizing. I would probably be betting this flop at a fairly high rate when check 2. Do I want to go smaller? I think this is a hand that we kind of want to go bigger with anyway, because we get to call a check raise. Well, we could go smaller because we have the back doors. But we do generate more fold equity when we go bigger. And we do have a hand that needs some protection. However, the hands that we're trying to get folds from here are like 10 jack, king 10, those kind of hands. So when we do bet bigger, we do get those hands to fold. Whereas if we bet small, they probably call once. So I kind of like the sizing here. Jack 2 offsuit, I would just be folding. Unless I have stats on big line that he's pretty tight. In which case, yeah, I'd probably raise smaller. Yeah. I mean, if you have some stats saying that he's pretty tight, then I'm fine opening this, but I would open to 2.5x because a tight player is going to fold to 2.5x pretty much at the same rate as they're going to fold to 3.5x.
So this may be very close to the bubble or just at the bubble.
Okay, yeah. So if it's bubble considerations, then certainly we can be opening wider here. But I would still open to a smaller sizing versus someone who you perceive to be folding too much.
Yeah.
You don't need to risk too much. King 8 offsuit. I'm going to be calling once. And then I would actually try and check it down. So you're turning king high into a bluff here, hoping to fold. Like, what are you hoping to fold out? Ace high? I think he's folding ace high.
I think I'm just kind of like thinking about protection of my hand.
But what do you protect? You're protecting against 2 random cards. He
Queen
can
Jack
have ace X. I just prefer to check this one down. Like, we don't have many hands that. The problem is here, like, you don't have many hands that you actually want to bet. You have some 6s. You don't have really any overpairs. If the small blind is thinking about this, like, you have 2x not very often. You have 6x some of the time, but you don't have 8s plus ever, whereas he does.
Yeah.
So this is a spot where I might be check raising just like an absolute ton here, because we have such a range advantage, and the big blind just has nothing too often. So yeah, it's kind of
very, very nasty, very nasty.
Yeah. But that's why we should probably be checking down.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm not a big fan of that either, just because your range is so, like, nothing.
Yeah, but he has range advantage, but I have not advantage.
What, with the 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have so few 2s.
That's true. That's true.
You just don't, like, because there's, and this is not a spot, like, so what you've got to think about is, yes, you have range advantage. Do you get pocket 8s to fold here? Does he ever fold pocket 8s here?
I just think he's full of shit.
Okay.
He's full of shit.
Yeah, but that's your perception. It's not like thinking it through logically. And yes, he probably folds here, doesn't he? Yeah. And yes, you can battle like this, but this is such, like, if you think it through, it's not a spot that, I mean, sure, he can be full of crap here, but it's a spot where you have nothing so often that, yeah, I'm just not in love with it.
The thing is that, I don't know, I bet so small, so yeah.
I think this is what we'd call fancy play syndrome.
Yeah.
It's just like an unnecessary spot which can end up costing you like 20 to 25% of your stack.
Yeah.
It's just slightly unnecessary.
It's just
and I've made these plays, but generally when I tend to make these plays is when I have history with a person and what I'm doing could be believable. And had I thought this through, I'm unlikely to be folding ace X versus you here.
Yeah.
Just because if I think that you can be bluffing at all, ace X does pretty well here. Okay, fives, we open, we get called. We get a flop which is going to favour in position pretty much. Well, it favours us to an extent that we have the better ace X, etc. However, his range is mainly like broadways and ace X, and all of those hands don't fold to a c-bet here. So I'm half tempted just to check fold in this situation. If I thought I could bet and get our opponent to fold like a queen-jack offsuit here, I think I would bet. But I think I'm just going to check fold this combo because it's not a hand that we can barrel with very often. And the only way I think to get him to fold hands that we want him to fold is to multi-street bluff. And multi-street bluffing with a hand like this is just not going to be great. Of course, you just bet and he folds. And obviously, it changes. If you've got stats on this player that he, like, you know, he's calling, his VPIP is like 48% or something like that, so he's playing way too many hands, then a c-bet works really well here. But versus a flat in position, which should be, you know, some suited ace X, some like ace-jack offsuit, ace-10 offsuit that he wants to play, king-queen offsuit, queen-jack offsuit, 10-jack suited. We just generate so few folds on this kind of flop that, I think I'm just going to be kind of check giving up here. And people could probably exploit me for doing that. But it just, my c-bets with this kind of hand here don't work too often. So it's probably another spot where I'm going to be checking a lot. So I think you're losing the value of ace-king here. I think you just make it like 5.5 big blinds here. And allow people to do random stupid stuff. Like, because under the gun can easily limp call, ace-9 suited or something like that. And what you've got to do is allow people to make mistakes. And you're not allowing people to make mistakes here. Like, you are allowing them to make mistakes by calling wider than they should do to a shove, but most people are going to play pretty well versus this. But versus a 5.5x raise, I think they're going to make a fair few mistakes.
I think one of the reasons why I do this is that I'm not that comfortable playing ace-king offsuit on flops, so I don't know. And that's I guess I just have to get better playing ace-king offsuit.
You just have to get more comfortable. And I think probably one of the reasons why you're not comfortable playing, and this is the same for a lot of newer players, is that they almost have a feeling that, like, okay, I have ace-king, I'm supposed to win with ace-king.
Yeah.
You're only supposed to win with ace-king a percentage of the time. It has really great equity in general versus most ranges, and it blocks all the better hands that people can have. And, unless someone has kings or queens, you're always doing really well.
Yeah.
But when you get to post-flop, it's just ace-high most of the time, and you need to play it accordingly.
Yeah.
What you don't need to do is get married to the hand. And I do see this a lot in, like, the lower stakes stuff that I play, is that I end up triple barreling on, like, a random board when I've got a set or something, and I get called down by ace-king. And it's just like someone has decided that ace-king is the nuts. And because it's the nuts pre-flop, they assume that it's the nuts post-flop, and it's just not. You just have to play it accordingly.
Yeah.
Post-flop. It's just a hand post-flop.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things I hate when you have ace-king off and you 3-bet or something and just get really bad flop and you're like, I have ace-king off, and you're just like,
and
I don't want
to... It's a psychological thing that everyone goes through, which is you get any hand really, which is why it's so difficult for most players losing with aces, is because when you pick up aces, in your head, you've already won the hand.
Yeah.
You're just thinking, okay, how big am I going to win this hand?
Yeah.
So when you lose, you're almost like, it's like someone has stolen something from you, which they haven't. They haven't really. They're just playing their hand, and sometimes aces do lose, and a lot of the time ace-king does lose. But what you've got to get over is that kind of psychological barrier and just play it as a poker hand.
I think I just need to get used to like 3-bet ace-king and then just, all right, it's a really bad flop, just check, or
it
check.
Depends whether, like, you know, ace-king is still going to be, especially when you 3-bet, you're still going to be c-betting at a high rate because you're going to have the stronger range, etc. But that's what you need to be thinking about, like, how does my range match up versus his range, etc. And should I be c-betting in this situation? Is ace-king a hand that I want to be checking back with to defend? Do I c-bet, give up? That's more the thoughts you should be having, not like, oh man, I've missed a flop with ace-king. I have to check it down, or I have to bet fold, or whatever. Just do what's going to be best. Jack 3 wasn't very interesting. Pocket 2s. I'm just going to fold in this situation. So we really need, like, to make this call profitable, we need either to be able to win a really big pot post-flop, which we're not going to be able to because he starts the hand with 30 big blinds. So the most that we can win is 30 big blinds. The other thing which makes this call absolutely, really not good is the 3 stacks behind. So with the 3 stacks behind, you get reshoved on at a fairly high rate. You also don't block any of the hands that they reshove with pocket 2s, and you're also not going to have the equity to call really with pocket 2s, even though it's a pair. It's just not a great spot in general.
I agree. I think it's bad.
We just have to fold. It's a great spot to be flatting aces and kings. But not a great spot to be flatting low pairs there.
Yes.
And it's also not a great spot in general if people are playing correctly. And this is a mistake that a lot of players still make, is opening low pairs like 2s through 5s in a spot where you're going to get reshoved on really a lot. Because again, the same thing, like when you've got short stacks that are going to shove on you a lot, what you want is to have blockers to the range that they're going to shove. So, like, I'm much more likely to open a queen 10 offsuit than I am pocket 3s because I block so much of the stuff that they have or that they can reshove with. Jack 9 suited, I'd be fine with a small 3-bet or with a call. Small 3-bet to fold. Call is just so profitable.
Small 3-bet, would that be 7 big blinds? Or?
No, it'd be like probably like 6. Because he's shorter stacked. I think you can make it 6. I think you can make it 7 here as well. What you could also do is kind of split your ranges here so that you've got like a 7 big blind, 1 3-bet range with stuff that you're generally not folding but likes to generate folds. So like your ace jack off, king queen off, those type of hands that you'd prefer just to either, get shoved on and call or generate a fold. And then like, ace king and jacks plus, where you really don't mind getting called very often. You could make that a smaller 3-bet with some bluffs like this thrown in. I think that would be okay. 3-way, we're just going to fold that. But a call is also okay as well there.
Yeah.
And I like to see you calling the small blind there because a lot of players don't call the small blind really ever, which is a mistake. You're still getting a discounted price to call.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get a pretty good board for the big blind. And the way I'm going to be playing this board is to be pretty polarized betting. So I'm going to be betting, at a 2/3 pot size, so probably like 4 big blinds here. And I'm going to be betting my over pairs, my good eights, probably like 6s and 7s I'll be betting here as well, all my sets, which we have, pretty much all of them apart from perhaps pocket 4s, which I probably would be opening pocket 4s in this situation. There's not too many short stacks. There's like 24 big blind stack here, but he's not going to reshove on us that much. Because he's early position. And then the only stat that I'm really worried about is Wucha, who only has 13 big blinds. So, as part of a polar betting strategy, we have 2 overs plus backdoor flush draw plus backdoor straight draw here. So I think this hand goes well in a betting range. And I'm much more likely to check back like ace-jack offsuit here. Because we have much more showdown value and much less turned equity. We've got a gut shot and 2 overs. I'm just going to fold queen jack. I don't think there's too much point in calling here because we just miss and have to fold river so often, or not.
That's how you play poker.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we've got to raise now. We got to choose a size. Which size do we go to? Here's a lot of like 2 pairs and stuff here, so I think we go pretty big. I think you want to be. I don't think you shove. I think you make it like 24, something like that. Just because he does have, he can have the worst straight here. He can easily have Jack 7. He can easily have 6-7. And he can easily have like 10-9, 9-8. He can easily have like 8-5 suited. All those hands that will probably call big bets. So yeah, this is a spot where I like going pretty big. Do we want to shove? I think you generate too many folds as a shove. So I prefer make it like 24, 22 is okay, and he folds. Yeah. Okay. Ace Queen, we open. We get 2 calls. Again, this is a flop where we're going to have to do a fair amount of checking in general versus an okay range. The guy on the button is also the guy who we played in the last video. I think we played aces, ace 4 board against, and he was obviously playing a little bit special on it. So I'd kind of try and leave him do something here. And because we have to check a ton of our range, checking really good hands like this makes sense as well because we just get to check raise. So I would be checking here with the intention of check raising, getting it in.
Yeah.
And there's not that many hands that so there's a ton of gut shots on this board. Any like 6-5, 6-7, all those hands plus the 10 jacks, 10 jack, 10-9. All those are gut shots, but we don't have many overcards that we're worried about. So yes, some cards that aren't great for us, but in general, I think this is fine to check raise, get it in, and kind of generate those bluffs from in position, who I think is going to be bluffing too much given the hand that we played with him, I think, in the last video. Queen 3 suited, we limp. I think limp is fine. Jam is fine as well. On that kind of board, just check folding is good.
I should have played street poker there and just went ham on him. And
no, I don't think so. I think that's a flop that it really favors in position.
I don't always go crazy, Owen. Just sometimes when
you just want to every hand.
I just feel it's just right, and I just pounce and Yeah.
I think in general, though, that board is really good for in position, and monotone boards in general are just better for in position because, well, basically because they get to choose how the action goes. We get 3-bet really big. Like that's much bigger sizing than most people use. So when someone uses much bigger sizing, our defending range has to be much tighter. So yeah, folding is the only kind of option there. King 2 of diamonds. Nothing to say. Aces. Gotta win. Flat call, I think, is the best play. So we've got 2 reshove stacks behind. The only thing is that, like, he's racing off a 9 big blind stack. So I could see making it like 4 big blinds here, just to try and make it not 5-way. But we still kind of want to induce something behind. So I think flat call is fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, we want to entice the blinds in, not chase them away. Just call. Yeah, okay. I'm not even going to look what he had.
No. That's fine.
Okay, aces. I could go either way here. I think it's fine to flat call. I think it's fine to jam. Like, if you're going to be flat calling any strong hands versus 2 players, 20 big blinds deep, aces is going to be it. But then shove is fine as well because we make so much shoving the hand. Yeah, because we get all that stuff to call. So
that's why you fold king queen suited.
Okay.
Just kidding. I'm gonna call king. Gonna cry call it.
Yeah. Not very interesting. Okay, 9s we open and the small blind calls. This board is pretty good for us because he calls small blind. He's gonna have like some broadways, some middling pairs, but none of the over pairs because he probably 3-bets like jacks plus, 10s plus probably. He probably 3-bets all the better ace-x, and then he'll be calling stuff like, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s like we have, and then some suited Broadway stuff and some suited aces he might be calling as well. It's just like a general range for a small blind call that I'd probably see here. So I think I'd be c-betting this board like at a massively high frequency. Plus, with pocket 9s here, having some protection by betting small is pretty decent. So yeah, go with a small bet. And now just, probably try and check it down. When he bets 5, he can definitely have 10x. He can definitely defend like suited ace x. Especially like wheel draws and stuff if he has ace 5, ace 4, ace 2 suited, those kind of hands. So he does have a fair amount of ace x. I also don't think he bluffs if he has like 4s through 9s here. I don't think it's a spot where we get bluffed very often. You're probably going to call and he shows up with like 8-9 suited here or something, but I think I would just be folding. I just don't think you get bluffed very often in this spot, especially like early position versus small blind, where ranges are going to be really tight. Okay, ace 10 suited. If early position is pretty loose, I think this is a spot where we just 3-bet get it in versus him. If he's quite tight, I'm happy just to flat call. So this is definitely a spot where I would be using my stats, because with ace 10 suited here, we make a lot more if we generate folds from early position. And early position here is put in a spot where they're basically all in or fold versus our 3-bet.
Yeah.
The big blind flat, I think we just generate folds at a massively high rate versus him. Yeah. Okay. And this is a spot where I'm just going to probably check raise, get it in. The SBR is basically 2.3, 2.4. So top pair in that kind of situation is pretty decent. And he can still have, if he's opening wide enough, he can definitely still have some worse ace-x that he's not going to fold. And he can also have like combo draws like King 10 of diamonds and stuff that we actually would like to get in versus. And yeah, I think the best way to play this is just check raise, get it in. It goes check, and we bet half pot. I would probably jam river. And the reason I jam river is because our range is made up of ace-x like this and missed bluffs, missed draws. And this is a spot where I probably wouldn't be bluffing too often with my missed draws because it's just too obvious. But I don't think our opponents would see that. So I think if we jam here, I'm more likely to get a crying call out of like ace-9 or even king-queen sometimes. I've definitely seen people call like king-queen in this spot because they think that you're bluffing. So the fact that he checked back turn is massive as well. Like he doesn't check back ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack on the turn. He doesn't check back a set on the turn. Like he's literally never slow playing here. So what I'm worried about is perhaps like ace-6 suited, but there's only 2 combos of that. Yeah, I think we just have to jam here, and it puts him in a much more difficult spot, I think, than just making it 8 big blinds. And I think you actually get more hero calls if you jam here than if you bet half pot. Okay, it looks like we might have actually made the final table here. Is this the final table? Because maybe just go through the hands. Yeah, I think we've made the final table here. So perhaps this is a good spot to call it a video.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks for watching, everyone. We will be back with part 7 at the final table very soon. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.